Welcome to another episode of Breaking into Cybersecurity, where we talk to cybersecurity professionals who have broken into the industry and want to share their journey and what they learned along the way. Today we have Jeremiah who will be sharing his story. Jeremiah, why don't you share a little bit about your background and what really got you into cyber or technology to begin with?
Thank you, Christoph. First, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it and hope to be of great value to you and your audience. Um, yes, I can absolutely share how I got into cybersecurity. It's a little bit of an unorthodox rather, way that I got into the industry. Initially, going all the way back to the late 1990s, I was more of an engineer in the IT space, implementing a platform called Siebel CRM systems, which was a client server based enterprise CRM platform that was growing like crazy in the late 90s, and it was the leader in the space. I think read later in some articles many years later that in 1999 Siebel was the fastest growing technology company in U.S. history. And to put that in perspective, it was before the juggernaut that is Salesforce.com even was around and made things web enabled. And my first kind of intro into cybersecurity was being invited to speak about the future of CRM, moving from client server based environments where everything was set up in a data center, usually on site at a large, let's say Fortune 100, Fortune 500 client. All the servers were there, all the data was there. It was a closed environment, to moving to the internet where you could access the CRM, customer data, customer information, company information remotely from outside the network. And I had the good fortune of being just in the right place at the right time. I was just a young guy in my early 20s, first job out of college, and I was implementing something called Siebel e-Service at a division of Honeywell out in Santa Clara, California, in Silicon Valley. And Tom Siebel's team caught wind that I was implementing it. It wasn't supposed to function at the time, but we got it working. It was very early product, and I was frustrated, struggling with getting it working. But then once I got it working, they were like, "Hey, that wasn't supposed to work. You got it to work, and then could you come talk at our conference about the future of CRM and the cybersecurity issues and concerns that could be there?" And I vividly remember speaking in front of close to 500 people, and I'd never spoken on stage before, but I was sharing how I thought that as the internet speeds picked up, cybersecurity became more of a concern, that folks would potentially move to a web-based version of a CRM platform versus the expensive, time-consuming, costly aspect of installing everything on site of the company. But that connectivity and ease of use comes with a lot of cyber concerns. So that was kind of my initial intro. And then many years went by, about 7-8 years, and I had started a company helping technology companies to grow based on my background, to really grow the business and get them to exit. And one of my first partners and clients was a cybersecurity company, an ethical hacking firm, where we were hired to hack into major organizations across the world, be it casinos, banks, hospitals, government orgs, etc., before the bad guys do it, so that our clients could then understand their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, and then protect against future attack. And that was my real kind of foray into cybersecurity as a practitioner. But I started not as an engineer, being the person that's actually doing the hacking, the cybersecurity activities. My job has been to grow the business in that space. But it's now been 19 years, and through practical exercise and experience, I've come to learn a lot about all the bad things that are happening to good people, and then also helping companies to prevent and protect themselves against these attacks. So it's hard to even believe that it's been 19 years, but that's kind of my unorthodox way of getting into cybersecurity. But I've been up to here since 2007, so it's been a good run.
Well, we need folks with all different skills and capabilities within the field, and the ability to communicate the risk and vulnerabilities to organizations that they have when they bring in a team or when maybe they don't want to bring in a team and they still have that risk, to communicate that to them is very essential. Um, so for someone potentially looking to, say, follow in your footsteps, that they might not have all of the, what they call, technical hacking skills, but they have
Mhm.
some of the sales skills, they have some of the engineering skills. What tips and tricks would you give them along the way that you learned from your path?
Sure. Don't do what I did. It's I'm a little bit of a maniac in the sense of, I'm just obsessed with helping people and helping companies to grow and all things entrepreneurship. And maybe what I'll do is I'll take one step back because I've had this could be helpful for others just to maybe use some kind of frame to understand that not everything is always so linear. Like I went to school, I got a CISSP, I am now a, certified security professional, cybersecurity professional. So my background has a lot to do with how I got here, and I think how it could be helpful to others to see that it's not always a linear path. I was very fortunate to grow up in a unique family. My mother was the oldest of 11 children, and my father was the youngest of 7. And neither of them had graduated from high school for various reasons. My father has some learning issues in school. It was always difficult for him, undiagnosed. So he left in the 10th grade and went into the Navy through a buddy program in the 1960s, and then came out of that and became a brilliant engineer and self-taught mechanic and entrepreneur later in life for a reason which I'll share in a moment. And then my mother, she was raising all of her 11 siblings, so she kind of never really was a child, didn't have an opportunity to be a child herself, but she loved caring for and protecting others, starting with her siblings. They tried to have tried to have children, not a few. One had 2 children, but unfortunately, those children passed shortly after birth. So they decided to go and become foster parents. And over the years, they raised 56 foster children in our small home in the countryside of upstate New York. And in that process, as you can imagine, that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of people to care for and to take care of. So they said, "What are we going to do? We don't have a high school diploma between us. Clearly, there's no corporate work or anything like that for us. So our only option is become entrepreneurs." And I always have this belief since I was a kid that entrepreneurship is really about being compensated for solving problems for others, which is essentially really what we're doing with cybersecurity, right? We're helping others, we're solving their problems, and in return, the business of it is we're being compensated to care for and protect our clients and their best interest. So I got thrust into entrepreneurship and real problem solving when I was just about 5 years old. And my parents bought a 100-year-old railside hotel that was abandoned in upstate New York. And it used to be a very active hotel where the workers would come off at the train station, they would stay there. But this thing had sat empty for a long time. So all the piping, copper piping had been taken out. People were selling, all the materials and stuff. So my dad, my mother, we all jumped in and rehabbed this property. And then my mother had gone to cosmetology school. So she put a hair salon in the first floor of the Baker Hotel slash newly renovated apartment building. And that model worked. So once we got that working, my parents would clone it in different towns and cities around where we lived in upstate New York, be apartment building, rehab it, and then put a hair salon in there. It created all these kind of recurring revenue activities, and it thrust me into entrepreneurship. Now, out of all the kids, I'm the only one that caught that entrepreneurial bug. So my whole life has really been about new challenges and not really following kind of this linear path, but being very curious, being a problem detective, and then in doing those 2 things constantly, like having discipline around it, like every day, just like breathing, always curious what someone's struggling with, what are their problems, how can I help them make it better, and kind of carrying forward this helping nature and entrepreneurial nature that my folks kind of instilled in me and my siblings, is what really led me into cyber. But it started as an entrepreneurial journey. And I kept hearing the problem that everyone's like, we can't get enough leads. We can't get enough sales. How are we going to pay everyone's salary and payroll in these smaller early stage companies that I'd worked with? And I'd set out to crack that code And I was very lucky to be a few things happened. One, first, the Siebel story I showed you. And then about 2001, I got very lucky where I was one of the first advertisers on Google's Google AdWords platforms. And it kind of transformed my thinking and how to attract new clients, because we had set up some Google ads, turned them on. And within a few days, the phones, we were working with an IT training provider in the Boston area. And the company was really early and struggling and struggling. And all of a sudden, testing this AdWords thing opened up a whole new world and a whole new learning experience, where we went from, hey, we might have a couple weeks to stay in business, to, what did you guys do? The phones are ringing off the hook at the other end of the office, and people want to buy our IT training on programming classes and stuff all over in 40 cities across the country. And we ended up doubling revenue in that first year. And Google decided to do a write-up and a case study on this particular exercise that we did, and the results of doubling revenue. And mind you, this is very, very early. Most people didn't even know what search engine marketing or Google AdWords was. They know what Google is because they're using it to look for things, but they didn't understand that there's a advertising component to it. So the first thing that I learned was, okay, great. Now I have the ability to control a faucet and help people grow their leads and sales. And that is what led me to start the business, leave corporate, and to start the business helping other technology companies to grow. And like I said a few moments ago, one of my first clients was in the cybersecurity space. So it wasn't a linear path, but it was kind of a way of constantly being curious, and then being a problem detective, and then also wanting to help companies solve whatever problems they're having, that then led me to the cyberspace. And cyber was so new back then, where even when we started, companies weren't properly budgeting for it. They wanted to do just kind of a check in the box exercise and move forward with, like, let's say it's HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance. And it was very frustrating, to be honest, in the beginning, because we were not allowed nor willing to cut corners and service folks in a way that wasn't in their best interest. So a few things happened. Of course, we all saw the news with, early on, many over 10 years ago, Target and Sony and several others ending up in the media for compromises. And then that kind of changed the industry to where, from the board level down, they started thinking more in terms of, what should we be doing that's better than what we've been doing? Because what we've been doing is getting people in trouble. They're getting compromised, and even C-suite was getting fired at that time, right? That seemed to be the resolve. And the minute C-suite started to get fired, the cybersecurity landscape instantly shifted, where people were like, we need to do the right thing, not just the check in the box thing, because both personally and professionally, they were interested in making sure they weren't just kind of following the herd per se. So my advice would be to folks is, if you're really interested to really get out of your comfort zone, out of your own walls, and if you're at school or thinking about going to school, really talk to the career center, talk to the alumni programs. Alumni programs can be amazing because they have such reach into companies, where you can get things like internships and apprenticeships. You can talk to people about what is it that you need when it comes to cybersecurity, and getting genuine feedback from those organizations. And I would really try to get myself in that kind of shadowing program, apprentice program, internship program. And those are the things that really helped me get started in my career in general. Was an unpaid internship, for example, doing some apprenticeship work with my parents, and all of these kind of things in those businesses. But the best thing you can do is, like, go right to the source and get yourself immersed as fast as possible, because you don't really know, we don't know what we want to do until we start experiencing things, right? And eventually you'll probably, and most likely, find an area of cyber that's important to you. And Christoph, you had mentioned a few moments ago that it's really, there's not just one role. There's a lot of needs in cybersecurity. There's the actual cybersecurity practitioner. There's the person that grows the company. There's the people that take care of the clients really well and keeps them happy. There's educators. There's just such a vast area in cybersecurity, and the needs are very strong. So it just comes down to putting yourself in a position, in my opinion, where you can experience as much as possible until you find an area where you feel like you have an inherent interest and discipline where you might want to, kind of go down that path. And I'll stop there. I hope that's helpful and not too rambling.
No, no, and it's exactly what I've seen has been successful for folks.
Mm,
Like if they've come from a healthcare background, it's healthcare plus cybersecurity. If they've come from a sales background, that's sales plus cybersecurity, and they can blend the skills and competencies from their past
hmm.
plus their newfound passion for cybersecurity and blend the two together.
Yeah.
Um, so as you kind of grew your business and now you're working with this cybersecurity company,
Hmm.
and focus more on that, how do you how do you absorb all this new knowledge and keep up with the ever-changing threat landscape?
Sure. Good point. So constant student, always learning. I think that's key because this is cybersecurity space is never sitting still, right? It's a constant game of the attacker trying to outsmart the victim. And nowadays, even with, there's always technological inventions and advancements like with AI, that's all the rage. And of course, we're all seeing how AI is being used to make the attackers be more efficient, smarter, more effective, and so forth. So it's a prime example just in current times why we have to even more stay educated and stay up to date. And then to add to that, another amazing thing to do, and I've been very fortunate to do, is surround myself with really smart engineers and others that have a interest in staying on top of things. And then, of course, speaking at industry events and also being a guest at industry events where you can be around your peers and colleagues. And then just being a constant student. Do not ever sit idle and think that we always know everything that there is to know, because that is just not the truth. And we literally have to stay just one step ahead of whatever the malicious and bad actors are doing with their attack methods, the vectors, the tools they're using, the techniques they're using. And that's really a constant student, and surround yourself with people that are much, let's just say, much smarter than you in the areas that you are not proficient in. And for me, I love surrounding myself with the engineers that are on the front lines that are breaking in and also doing the defending, because they're seeing the truth, the reality of what's happening. And then if you can be part of some kind of peer groups, roundtables, and things like that, where you meet on a regular basis to ask other professionals what they're seeing in their business and their industries, that's another really great way to stay ahead of things. Oh, Christoph, I think I may have lost your audio. I think you might be on mute.
So what are you seeing as some of the threats to stay ahead of, from your perspective?
Sure. Well, one of the things that stands out that's kind of what I would say is new, and maybe even before I go into that, I'm seeing the same attacks happening since my since 2007, right? From my entry into full-time cybersecurity offering and protection. One is it really the biggest things that I'm seeing and continue to see, and it bothers me a great deal, and that's why I have it here somewhere. I wrote a book and I give a talk called Confessions of a Hacker, and
Mhm.
it's all of these stories that we see um, happening over and over, and how to protect yourself against them. So the common things that continue to happen are one, it's the standard stuff that we all see, which is a business account gets taken over. Let's say it's an email email or Outlook, whatever it might be. And a bad actor gets in and they sit for a while and they wait and they wait and they watch and they observe. And what they're doing is they're looking for patterns of how money gets moved around, what frequency, dollar amounts, where it gets sent to, and so forth. And this is probably the most common financial loss that I've seen and continue to see. And what they'll do is they wait, and the actual owner of the email account has no idea that the bad actor's in there. And once they set out of office, I'm on vacation or whatever it may be, or even just standard operation, the bad actor will then hide their communication and actually make a request and or ask a client to wire funds or do some form of fund transfer to an account that does not belong to the where they think it's going. It's actually going to the cyber criminals account. That number one is happening a lot, and it's frequent. Continues to happen. I mean, to this day, it gives me goosebumps to get the call. Jeremiah, I think someone just took $500,000 from us, and we don't know if we can claw it back, or it left the country, or whatever it may be. That continues to happen. And I think a lot of that is just because the way that companies find out about it, and even that it is a threat, is when it actually happens to them, which is oftentimes too late, right? Like, it's hard to do something about it if you don't have defenses, protection, knowledge that these type of fund transfer fraud and business account takeovers are happening. It's still extremely lucrative. I mean, it's like modern day bank robbery, basically, without having to physically go into a branch or something like that. So that's happening a lot. And then the business account takeovers are also happening on things like social media, where, let's say I received a phone call from an ultra high net worth individual, someone that's most likely a billionaire, and someone had taken over one of their social media accounts, changed all the login information, and started using it as a distribution channel to send out a cryptocurrency investment scam. That's very, very common because it's relying on the prestige, the trust of this particular individual. And maybe their contacts will think, oh, well, if he or she's doing it, they're very smart and very successful. Maybe I'll take them up on this $15,000 or whatever, kind of investment scam. And that's another very common and frequent thing that we're seeing and continue to see, going on almost the last 20 years. So it's very, very common. And then, of course, ransomware, which we all hear about and probably know and or have been affected by it, but consistently receive those phone calls that someone's locked everything down. They're demanding, $300,000 or $500,000 in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or whatever it may be, to give us the key so that we can unlock our files. And then usually what happens when we ask the next question, which is, well, do you have, segmented and air gap data, encrypted data backup, so that you could just and go through the exercises of being able to stand everything back up if you didn't pay the ransom? And they're like, no, we don't have any of that. Do you have any crypto you could offer us so that we could get this unlocked? So it keeps happening. Those are the things that I've noticed that are the most financially, reputationally damaging, and they continue to happen. And now, that being said, all these years it has stayed steady. Now add AI. Now you can fish better. Your messages are, there's not a lot of grammatical errors or anything like that. And psychologically, and persuasion and manipulation, it's very simple for these large language models and these tools to be able to essentially write the messages, be it a text message or an email message, for the bad guys, and allow them to be more efficient and effective at what they're doing. And then I've even heard recently a situation where an executive at a large company was held for extortion. And extortion is another thing that's really a really big problem that's, equal to kind of how ransomware works, but a little differently. And where for example, one use case is a very popular internal chat tool inside of a business was compromised through the person that had admin rights. AI was then used to scour all the conversations looking for compromising dialogue between employees, and they hit eureka. They hit bingo. We found something. The bad guys, and what they found was a communication where a junior person was reporting up to, I believe it was the CFO, about something that didn't quite seem right, and they were told to ignore it more than once. And the bad guys, the cyber criminals, screen captured that and then sent it to the CFO saying, you can get in really big trouble. And if you don't pay us $300,000 and pick your form of cryptocurrency, we're going to report this up to the board and to the CEO and to the legal authority. So seeing AI being used to really accelerate what I would consider the most consistent cyber scams and attacks, be it fund transfer fraud, business account takeover, phishing at a general scale, spear phishing, the ransomware attacks, and so forth. So it's accelerating, if that makes sense. Like the AI is making the bad guys more efficient at what they do. So that means we on the other side have to use the tools to, again, stay one step ahead of them, know how we're being attacked, put the proper defenses in place with monitoring and alerting and, reactionary means to mitigate the damages and risk that we have. So it's accelerating in the last few
So
years from my experience.
a question there. We see a trend where teams or organizations are cutting whole departments out because of AI enablement.
Yep.
But do we feel that AI is ready to take on the task of defending an organization without a human team in the loop?
I would say no. And I'm only speaking from my own point of view. Like it's a big capital NO exclamation point, and you could add a few exclamation points. Yeah, like you probably see it too. It's a lot of headlines and hyperbole around AI, right? And I'm very, I guess let's call me basic, right? I don't think that I do not think that we're there yet. I think we really have to have really talented, expert practitioners, craftspeople at the helm, and then using AI as almost it's more like a bionic arm if you were to visualize it.
Mhm.
So it allows you to do more and lift more, but I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want to replace the human element. That seems highly dangerous to me.
And for the up and comers that um, now have AI so freely available, um, how can they try to use it to learn, but not um, become a crutch?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Reminds me of going back to my junior high school days with like the TI-85 calculator. Like,
Yes.
Jeremiah, you need to do the math without the tool, and then you can use the tool to make you more efficient. And I don't know if that's a true statement or not, but I think it's always good to learn the fundamentals of what you're doing and then use the tools as an enhancement, not a replacement. And I think if we get too caught up on any form of tools, be it AI or whatever, and we don't know kind of the fundamentals, we won't be able to use the tools as well as to get the most out of them because we don't really know how to be a good director, because we haven't really done the work, And I can kind of go back to some examples of how when I had a business in college and we were building it. We were very early in the .com days, and we built some of the first websites for like National Soccer Hall of Fame, did some work for some of the larger pharmaceutical folks and so forth. And when we started, we were using Notepad and just writing HTML text, and then you would upload it to the web server and be able to see if what you built actually functions and what it looks like. And then some tools from Microsoft came out called Front Page, and then there was another one called Dreamweaver, which was more of a drag and drop WYSIWYG kind of editor, but it was very good I felt that I knew how to do everything by hand first, and then to be able to go use the tools later to kind of add efficiency and accelerate what I'm trying to do. So that's why I'm a big believer, incorrectly or correctly, in that you really want to keep your eye on the fundamentals. And then I think where I've gotten the most out of AI is just it helps you get educated in a way that didn't really exist before. Where before you might, not to pick on my book, but you might read something that's kind of static here, right? But now you have a collection of all the information at your fingertips if you know how to ask the right questions and know what is good and what is not good. And that's why I think going back to the fundamentals, you really need to get a good grasp of those and then use the tools to accelerate, what you're doing and make it more efficient, not to replace.
Makes sense, makes sense. Any final tips that you would give, folks for the future of what you see the industry
Mhm.
morphing into?
Yeah, and again, I can only speak from my own experience. I don't want to speak for others, but demand is constantly seems to be increasing for cybersecurity professionals. And for real, like real practitioners, people that love the craft, like you want to be really, really good at what you do, and it's because you enjoy it. I would recommend that if that's how you feel and you really want to protect people and protect organizations, and you really enjoy the kind of mission impossible aspects of the cat and mouse of cyber and so forth, then I would just really go all in on it. And you have to get out of your own walls to talk to people that are already in the space, have conversations with them. And if they can't help you, I'm sure they'll know someone that can. And if you're at school, for example, at college or university, go talk to the career center, go talk to the folks that, if you have, the cybersecurity programs and the computer science arm and so forth, talk to the alumni session, try to get those apprenticeships, try to get the internships. The schools are really, really great at being able to connect us to those organizations so that you can get firsthand experience. And once you have that firsthand experience, you're kind of creating like a staircase situation for yourself, where that's the first step. Now you have real world experience, maybe some testimonials for the people that you reported to about your work and your aptitude and so forth. And then just treat it like going up one stair step at a time until you feel like you've really gotten where you want to be. And I do coach some younger people, and then people that are even my age that are doing a career shift and they want to get into the space. And that's really the advice that I've given and seen a lot of folks take up on and actually grab a hold of it. And when they come back and say, hey, I'm doing this internship that then led to a job in the cyber industry, that makes me feel really good for them. And then also, for myself, that I'm not giving bad advice. But a lot of it's immersion. You got to get yourself in a spot where you can learn on the job.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much, Jeremiah. I really appreciate it. And
Thank
thank you
you,
so much for
Christoph.
taking time out of your day for joining us on Breaking into Cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. And feel free to reach out to me anytime. Always happy to help where I can. And I really appreciate you all as well.
Yeah, and share the links for your book and any other useful resources, and I'll include them in the show notes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. And
Okay.
please let me know how I can support you.
Yep.